Could you talk a little bit about how people get started with more advanced analytics?
Well, there's a number of ways they can start, and I think probably the best thing to do initially is to try to understand what it is that you need to know. Every analysis job in every company, in every industry is going to have some unique characteristics to it. So number one is to do a self-diagnosis or to have somebody do a diagnosis for you to kind of understand what it is that you bring strengths-wise to the analysis task, as well as to try to understand some of the limitations or some of the impediments that might keep you from pursuing that effectively. Second thing I always recommend people do is to go through an initial course. You can do courses from a number of reputable organizations. There are obviously a number of universities out there that provide them, as well as consultancies that provide specific analytical training. The third thing I always recommend people do is to make sure that they read up on it, and there's a lot of good resources that they can use. There are handbooks out there that they can take advantage of. There are white papers. There's a number of websites as well that can help them to self-learn analytical processes and techniques.
You mentioned that one of the key success factors there is self-diagnosis and becoming more self-aware. What are some of the characteristics of a great analyst?
Great analysts, there's always been a debate about whether the great analyst is actually born or whether they're actually nurtured. So the old, nature versus nurture debate. And the answer is they're actually a bit of both. Some of those natural characteristics that the best analysts always display are things like a natural curiosity. They're always questioning what they're looking at. Pattern and trend recognition, people that see things and can put it together in ways that other people cannot. The gift of inquisitiveness, the gift of persistence, things like that. Those are all certainly part of that natural side or the gift side that good analysts can bring into the fray. On the other side, though, you can also develop your skills. And like anything that you're trying to be really good at, you have to practice it. And you have to do it, you have to practice it, you have to debrief it, you have to evaluate it. You have to be able to do it numerous times under different conditions in order to get better and better at it. So there are certainly those two sides to it. Again, being in a place that analysis is also the time to do appropriate analysis, where the context is actually shaped in a way that makes it favorable to have the thinking time, making sure that you have the appropriate inputs from the primary or secondary research side of the equation as well makes a huge difference, being able to tap into the networks. Good analysts, again, do develop over time, but admittedly, there are some people that are more pre-inclined to do it than others.
Mm-hmm. And finally, what are some of the most basic or fundamental intelligence analysis tools that the professional wants to make sure is in their portfolio, and are there a few that are a little more advanced that they might want to consider adding as well?
Well, there's always the basic ones that every analyst has to have in their so-called toolkit. The first one, and I don't know a single analyst that doesn't do SWOT or TOES analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Being able to do financial ratio and statement analysis, critical skill. Looking at a balance sheet and understanding what your competitors are facing in terms of their resources they can bring into play. Another one that is a consistent and a common one among analysts is Porter's 5 forces to be able to understand industry conditions. Certainly patent analysis is one that's become increasingly important in a variety of intellectually property-driven or IP-driven or knowledge-driven industries is one we always kind of recommend they do. And I'd say last but not least, competitor analysis, needless to say, four corners analysis, those tools. If that's a baker's half dozen, certainly that all analysts have to do. But, that's just tip of the iceberg. In reality, there are hundreds of techniques, and in my books alone, I provide 48 different techniques, and I suspect there aren't too many analysts that could easily wield all 48 of those techniques.
I know, I don't think I could.
It's not easy. And in reality, you may not need to. But the key for any good analyst is to be able to pull out the right tool at the right time for the right purpose. Mm-hmm. And this is something I spend a lot of time training people about. Different tools. If you have a hammer but you don't have a nail, what good's it going to do? And again, if someone's building a house, again, and all they have is the saw, all they have is the SWAT, it's going to be pretty difficult to build that house. And so it is important that analysts recognize that certain tools are designed for certain purposes, and to be able to sequence those tools, to be able to know when one of them complements another or where one actually helps to mitigate some of the limitations that one of the other tools they're applying actually has. So that issue of sequencing combinations becomes critical in the analytical task.
So there's hope for me yet.
I think so.